Hello, everybody. Welcome to the new and improved Mike Ames recruitment show. And I'm going to say, first of all, Happy New Year to you because it's our first show of the year, and Happy New Year to you, Big Mike. How you doing?
I'm very good, actually. I just wondered why you're hazy today, Kirsty Elizabeth.
My internet has decided to be temperamental, so I sometimes I go a bit hazy, but I'm still here. So we're fingers crossed that it's fine for the show. But
I
that's
think
why if I
your
go a bit
your
hazy.
um your internet is steam powered, isn't it? Didn't you just stoke up the
I
boiler
think,
before?
yeah. I tried my hardest to put some more coal on, some wood. We're more environmentally friendly, but yes, so that's why I'm a bit hazy. But hopefully, we should be okay today. So, Mike, first show back, Mike Ames recruitment show. Now, are we all excited?
Yeah,
We
yeah.
raring to go for the year?
Just so as everyone knows, we're just obviously warming up now, not technically live for another minute, but Kirsty wanted a special logo, the Kirsty Ames show, because she thought that would be funny.
Would be really
Ha
funny.
ha 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 ha. It's lucky I'm wearing my corset, otherwise my sides would have split, is
It
all I
would have
can
been,
say.
but my Pete said we weren't allowed it because it would have taken way too much time to put it
Mm.
together. So that joke was ruined. But we are, I think, about ready to get started because people will be coming through. As always, as we go through today's show, if you have any questions, queries, if you want to make fun of Mike, I very much encourage that. If you want to say that he's wrong, I also very much encourage that. But today, we are focused on factory versus 360 models. And Mike, I know that a lot of people know what a 360 recruiter is, but can we just make sure that we're all singing off the same hymn sheet? Can we have a definition of what you say a 360 model is, please?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think you're right. I think everyone kind of knows what a 360 model is. There are a lot of components to a 360 role, basically split into three segments: the ability to win new clients, the ability to account manage or look after clients, and that includes picking up vacancies from them, and then the ability to deliver, to find
Mm.
candidates and place them. And we know that to be successful in any role, it's been defined. Whatever it is that you need to do, then there's a set of competencies that you need to be successful in that role. And for a 360, there are a lot of competencies. And personally, I think there are too many. That's why you don't get a lot of, a huge amount of 360s who are really good kicking around that aren't running their own business, right? But
That's
if
the
we
big
just quickly look at the pros and cons of that,
hmm
because I think that
There
there
are
are some
pros.
pros. There are pros. Yeah, no, there are really. There are. Let's assume the pros, though, relate to people who are good 360s. In other words, they're not just 360 in title, they actually do a 360 role, right? So they do the whole thing, all of those things that we talked about. Well, the first thing is they can be very efficient because and very productive. You just that there's no communication lines. They know everything. They get the client, they get the role, they manage the role, they find the candidates, they do it all. So that no one's having to talk to anyone. Just crack on with it. And of
hmm
course, the really good ones are self-sufficient. I think there's this dream that recruiters have that tell you what we'll do. What we'll do is we'll hire some really good 360s and they're independent and everything. We'll give them a desk and LinkedIn and access to the ATS and a telephone and everything. And then the money will start to roll in.
It's the
And
dream. It's the absolute
it's the
dream.
dream. It's the dream, but it quickly turns into the nightmare. And the reason it turns into the nightmare is because there are a lot of cons associated with
hmm
this, I'm
Yes.
afraid. As we all know, it's very hard to develop, recruit, and hang on to good
Yeah.
360s,
Because
right?
they just go and create their own business. That's why there aren't that many of them.
Well, ask yourself this. If you own your own business and you were a good 360 recruiter, was that a factor in your decision? Because I'm guessing it was. If you could only do resourcing, then you probably wouldn't start your business up. You started a business because you can do the full package,
hmm
but there aren't that many people who can. But those that can often think to themselves, why am I giving 65% of my billings away to this company when I'm doing all the work? I mean, it's a
Mm,
reasonable question, I think you'll ask. So,
pretty fair.
yes, right, they do go. And when they go, they take clients with them and ultimately they take revenue with them. And everyone knows that, as you did when you started your business, right? So it's true. As it says there, you are effectively, if you look over at your budding 360 team, you are effectively training your future competition right there.
hmm
Which
I
is,
think I think the next one's big though, because very often you see people who say they're 360s and they're not, are they? They're
Oh, they're
they
so
they're
not.
180s, they're 270s at best, but they're
Mm,
more often than not 180s. But they say they're 360s, they're not, and then you're the one as the owner who has to pick up the slack, and
yeah,
it's normally around new business that slack is, isn't it?
especially in bigger companies. People class themselves in big companies as 360, but the truth of the matter is that the company's brand brings a lot of referrals in and opportunities in. Plus, they've got a lot of incumbent clients. So, are they a 360 in a small business? Probably not, where you've got no brand recognition and you've got to go out and win it. It's not the same. So, just
Mm,
because you're a 360 and you may be a 360 in a bigger business doesn't mean to say that's going to translate into a smaller one for sure.
And
I think
then
the next point on there is quite important. You often get with the 360 this stop and start in terms of revenue stream. So all hands to the pump, get some vacancies.
mhm.
Okay. Stop getting vacancies, start finding candidates and managing the recruitment process. Finish that, got nothing to work on. Go and get some more vacancies.
And
But
then
there's
the
a bit of a
cycle
lag, obviously,
continues.
when there's no work being done. Now, I know that's an oversimplified version of it, but you do get this fluctuation in revenue stream with the 360 team. You can quite often see that.
Yeah.
And
Only
it's
so many
because,
hours in the day.
well, they can only do one thing at once, you
Mm,
know. So the other point is that they will target vacancies, you know, the vacancy
mm.
scraping where we need some work. Well, I'll go and get something. So you're focusing on the type of clients that give work out to anybody that rings them or
They're
sends them an
not
email.
loyal, they don't tend to be big placements, they don't tend to have
No.
high margins, they tend to have a lot of other people working on the same thing, so you're gonna come across as, "Oh, I've already spoken to so and so, you can't put me forward." All the things that we've all come across when working in recruitment. So yeah, definitely. And it is,
Yeah.
as you've got in that last one, a very short-term view of business.
Yeah, that's not how you're going to build an empire. You know, 74% of recruitment companies have got 10 people or less, and the vast majority of those are just one or two man bands. So no, and that's the reason, because they vacancy scrape all the time. We've talked about it before many times. Not going to go over old ground, but I think that when you look at the pros and cons, when you look at what the benefits are of the 360, get a good one and keep them, and they outweigh the the cons, basically, in my mind.
100%.
But it's difficult to get somebody like that, I think.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one, definitely. So, okay, I think we understand what 360s are, and we all sort of get them anyway. Let's talk now about this factory model. So what is your definition of a factory model there, Mike?
Okay, I'll explain where they came from, factories in general, because it'll help, I think. Back in the day, Henry Ford built cars rather like they would build carriages. Before that, you'd have a group of craftsmen, probably engineers, who would build a car, and then when that car was built, they'd build the next one.
Mm,
And he couldn't keep pace with the demand for his Model T. He just couldn't get the number of engineers that he needed. Well, a mate of a mate apparently owned a meat packing or meat processing factory in Chicago,
mm,
and Ford went to see him, and he was told that, well, there was an explosion of population in the cities in America in the early part of the 20th century, and they just couldn't get enough skilled butchers. It's quite a skilled job. So what this guy did was set a factory up, put a bloke on a workstation, trained him to do one thing, and put the carcasses on rails and sent them down the line, basically. And Ford saw this and thought, bingo, that's what I'm going to do. Came back to his factory and started putting a production line in,
mm.
which of course meant that he didn't need those, if you like, 360 engineers anymore. He just needed someone to put a wheel on or fit a steering wheel or do something. I mean, that was the deal with him.
Okay, all right. So I think we can go into a little bit more detail, Mr. Henry. By all accounts, not a very nice man,
I was
Mr.
a
Henry Ford.
horrendous human being, really. And
Not a very nice man.
I'm not in the Henry Ford fan club, but see through the man to what exactly he achieved, because I think that's the
Mm,
important thing. So
mm,
he well, the biggest thing that he achieved was it made it much easier for him to hire people
yeah.
and to retain them. He retained them because his factory made a lot more profit, and he doubled their wages, quite literally, from $2.50 an hour to $5 an hour. So everybody else is paying $2.50 because that's all they can afford. And this is a picture of it actually. Here I've got these are reputedly people queuing up
To get
because
double their annual wage. Yes, I imagine they
because
were.
they're going to double their annual wage, right? So they kept people, they could get them easily, and I think that is one of the side effects of a factory. But there are other things. So if someone left, it was really close to a zero impact. Whereas when a 360 engineer left, that's like a big deal. Now, not so much, really. It's
Well,
just fairly easy, really.
you're only replacing a very small percentage instead of someone who has to do everything. They only have to do this one small
A
thing.
function. You're
Yeah.
replacing the function, which is relatively easy to train up and get them sorted, right? He also built his cars cheaper and faster. I think in 1910 he was selling his Model T for about $850 or something, and in 1927 he was selling it for $260.
Wow, and that meant what's the statistic? How many cars on the planet were Fords?
Oh, 50% in 1927 of the cars. I mean, he left the competition trailing. There was all
Yeah.
they could see was Model T smoke, in the distance, because he made a really, really good fist of building a cars efficiently. I think when he was using 360 engineers, it was 12 hours to build a car.
Mm.
On average, it was 90 minutes with this system, and the fastest I think they did it was 72 minutes to build a car on the production line. So it was obviously significantly more efficient because people are just focused on what they do and they do it really well.
Yeah, and they have excellent quality because I can turn this knob a lot quicker than I can do everything else. So yeah, it makes sense. Okay, but Mike, I've got a thing here because Ford was doing a physical product. He was making a car. It was physical. You could very easily break down it into certain roles. But when we're talking about recruitment, we're talking about service. It's a very different thing. So is it possible to actually replicate it for a service in recruitment?
Oh, for sure, yeah, for sure. I mean, this process of breaking down an operation into its components, functions, if you will, is not just a recruitment thing. Lots of service industries do it, but let me just show you. Let me just talk to you through the typical factory pod. It's called, right. So you've got the same three functions because that's recruitment. Got to get clients, got to get vacancies and look after clients. I've got to deliver, got to put a bum on a seat, right? So there's no question that it's different. But what we do is we break it down into these functions. So the first thing is a lead gen function.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to have qualified, high value client leads coming into the business. And there's a function that does that. And it's measured and equipped and trained to do that very thing.
Mm-hmm.
That then is effectively handed over to the conversion function, which takes a lead who probably doesn't even know of your existence and gradually moves it through 6 different zones until it becomes a client. That's sort of the production line, really, I guess. And not everyone makes it to being client, obviously. And then when they become clients, it's really about client care. It's about making sure that you get the requirements from those clients, the vacancies, and preferably first choice at that. That's really what you want, because if you're first choice, that's where the big bucks are. But certainly look after those clients and keep them once you've got them.
Mm-hmm.
If you keep clients and you're just adding new clients to them, year on year, that's how you grow exponentially. It's massively so. And then, of course, you have the placement where you actually put the bum on a seat, dealing with clients, arranging interviews and so on and so forth. And of course, then you have the resourcing function as well.
Okay, I've got 2 questions, Michael. And as I'm the queen of questions. So the first question I've got is, looking at that, it seems like the impression I'm getting is that things take time. But I know I've worked with many recruiters, I've worked in a couple, is that sometimes recruitment, somebody will just go on the phones, they'll get vacancies for that week that they're going to fill. That process doesn't look like it necessarily supports that premise.
No. I mean, it's a simplified version of it, obviously. If I can draw your attention to secure vacancies, which is part of the extreme client care, you can do that in one of 2 ways. Either you can do it with an established client, high value client, where there's going to be a steady stream of work and they value you, and they don't give requirements out to every Tom, Dick or Harry. They've got a supplier community that they value, and you're part of it, right? And that's really where you want to be, because again, that's where the big money is. That's how you grow a business, which continues to grow and grows in value, that someone will perhaps want to buy one day. Who knows? But also, you need the ability to just go and get a vacancy scraping, we call it, and you need to be able to do that. So your factory needs facilities to do both of those things. It's just that if all you do is vacancy scrape, I've got no work, I'll ring around until I get a vacancy. that's all you'll do forever. It's very time consuming and it's very difficult. And the roles that you get, as you said earlier, probably other people have got them, and it's not really where you want to be, truth be told. So it's you need to do both, basically. It answers that question for you.
Okay, so it works out both. Fantastic. And then the other thing, so I'm looking at this as a business owner who's watching this, and I'm thinking, right, so I'm going from one person who does 360, all of those 5 functions that you've got there, to 5 people which each specialize in one function. Is that what you're telling me with this?
No.
Oh, well, that put me
No.
in my place, didn't it?
Yeah. So let's move on to the next question. No, just kidding. These are functions. So it gives you more choice as a business owner, because if you've got 360, they do everything. That's the deal. You can supplement that a little bit. You can give them the resources if you want to. You can have a marketing function to help them. But essentially, it's them. They're doing all of it. In this, you're breaking down this process into its constituent parts. And then you focus on making each of those parts as efficient as you possibly can. Now, sometimes that means outsourcing it. We know there's a rise in outsourcing to India, the Philippines, and South Africa at the moment. Quite rightly so. It's a great thing to do if you do it properly. But that's okay, because resourcing really splits into level A and level B, 1 or 2. The first level is where you're just finding the candidates. Well, anyone can do that. And then the second level is when you reach out and start to talk to them. Well, that's a little different. Other people need to do that perhaps, but you've got this, because you're in a factory mentality, you're breaking it down into components. You can very easily move that around. Same goes for lead gen. You can outsource a good part of the lead gen, or you've got shared services. So prospect conversion, for example, if you're a 360, you've got to convert your prospects. Except in most cases you don't, because you're just vacancy scraping, but somebody does, and the high value ones. Well, in a small business, you only really need one prospect converter to feed the whole business.
Yeah.
It's normally how it works. So put the lead gen facility with the prospect conversion facility, and all of a sudden the magic begins to happen. The Model Ts are starting to run off the production line at a great pace. So you can cut it in different ways. And every time I design one of these for a client, it kind of looks different, but the basic framework is the same. These are the 5 components. Make sure those components work, make them as efficient as you can, which is using tools and techniques and processes. Make sure you've got the right people doing the right job, and they're trained to do it, and you won't go too far adrift.
Okay. All right. So that makes sense. So I think it makes sense, but you know what I'm like, Michael? I am a lady who enjoys examples. So can you kind of give me a more real world example, or something that makes this a little bit clearer?
Let's talk about how we implement this then. Let's talk
Okay.
about how you implement this in real life. Let's imagine that there is somebody who starts a business. There she is. Someone starts a business and she's doing everything. So she's winning new clients. She's looking after existing clients, capturing vacancies to work on, finding candidates, and then actually management the placement process, because you would. And
Okay.
those people who started their own business, you recognize that those are the things that you do. Of course, as quick as you can, you hire a resourcer, because that means that you do slightly less resourcing now, because somebody else is doing that. And you can train people in the different aspects of resourcing. You've got those different levels that you can do. And you can gradually get them to be better and better. And you can add another one, so you do even less resourcing now. Then gradually you're going to add a consultant. Well, what a consultant does, obviously, is some resourcing, because they have to, but the placement, they can actually begin to talk to clients. So you're doing less placement work now as the owner than you were doing. Add another resourcer. You don't do any resourcing at all now, strangely enough. Still doing the vacancy capture, obviously still doing some of the placement work. But as soon as you get, you start to build up the consultants team, then you're doing even less placements. And then eventually you add a client manager, account manager, call them what you will. So they're now doing some of the vacancy captures. They're doing some of the resourcing, but not very much. And they're certainly handling some of the placements. And then gradually, as you move up, their role changes. So you now no longer do anything except new client acquisition and senior account management, sometimes called account directorship. And of course, in that space, you'd also be running the business. Obviously, I haven't sort of talked about that, but naturally you would be doing that. And then gradually you reach the stage where you have a deputy. Now, if you think about a pod in this way, an owner and a deputy, if they're very close to you and they can pretty much do what you can do, then it means you can go on your holidays and not have to look at your emails every day or be
Mm.
taking calls. You can actually have a life now, which
Yeah,
is
you can go to your kid's sports day, or you
hmm,
can go to your friend's wedding that's over a long weekend, and you can do all of those things. Because I think the biggest thing for me on this example is, as an owner, you do less things. You do less things, so you can focus on moving the business forward, but
yeah,
you do it in a way where you don't dilute the brand, as it were, or you don't dilute the values that you've got, because you're growing it gradually and you sort of can
quite
monitor
so.
everything.
Yeah, quite
Yeah.
so. I've seen in the past people abdicate rather than delegate. And abdication means you just basically, well, you do that now. And there's not been enough preparation. That perhaps that person's not the right person, or they're not being trained properly. The whole thing ends in a shower, really,
Mm.
and it's that brown, smelly kind of shower. So what we want is something which is controlled, and you can build a pod like this. And of course, if you want to, then you can let the deputy go and create their own pod. You tie them
Mm.
in with some shares, they grow another pod. So this is actually a very scalable model if you want to scale and sell a business. And the first business I had was grown in this way. And
Mm.
we had 5 pods that turned over 40 million quid in those days, probably
No.
65, 70 million quid now.
Mhm.
So this is scalable. But for a lot of people, they just want one pod,
Yeah,
generate all the money they want, have a great life, be done with it. So
yeah.
this is a very flexible approach. The factory approach is very flexible for that.
It looks so. So can we go to the next step then, which would be to look at the pros and cons? Because as with everything, there's always two sides to the coin.
Sure.
So can we look at those things that we like about it, and then the things that you have to
Sure,
consider as well?
let's do that. So, pros first, it is a very highly profitable model. There is no question about it, and it's profitable because when change is expensive, right? So every time you change a business and grow it, that costs you money because you're buying extra people who aren't fully productive. Some of them don't work out, so you've got to get rid of them, get some new people. You're adding extra layers of management in there to look after things. You're buying new tools, new space, new everything. So it's very expensive. And quite often you'll see this, and we're going to have a whole show on this, I think. You'll see the turnover go up, but the profit doesn't go up at the same pace.
Oh, that's a common one, isn't it? My
Yeah.
turnover's up, but I'm not earning any more money.
Yeah, yeah, and in some cases, profit really doesn't lift at all. It's
Go
just a
down
very very
even.
common route. In the factory model, that doesn't happen. It doesn't
Mm.
happen. You reach a certain stage, and what happens is you build a stable team. Right, that's part of it. You get less levers, as it says there. You know, it is to hire and retain staff because you don't need that 360 thing anymore, which a lot of people are
Yeah.
scared of, especially the new business stuff at the beginning. Just get
Mm.
people that can do what they can do. If you're growing a small pod, a single pod business, a lifestyle, a cash cow lifestyle business, then you bring in the new clients because if someone leaves, they don't know how to do that because you're doing it for them. So you're protected a little bit. So it does reduce it. Also, people become a lot more efficient because they're doing the same thing and getting better and better and better at it before you move them on to the next thing. There is a clear career path for people.
Which is a big thing specifically for millennials and Gen Z as well. They're really big on knowing what their career path is, knowing where they can develop, and things like that. So that's a big
Yeah,
thing for
sure.
them, isn't it?
But when I was at that age, Gen Z
Many,
age,
many, many, many moons ago.
I like to think a year or two ago, but whatever.
Many, many
Mm.
moons
Okay,
ago.
in the early 80s, then let's just say that and call it quits. I wanted those things as well. This isn't a modern phenomenon. I wanted to get on. I wanted a career path. I wanted to develop my skills. There's no difference really.
Mm,
Most people want that. So you're giving them that career path, even to the point of having their own pod. Okay, you're in charge of that now, pretty much. Share ownership, freedom to do what they like. I mean, there is a very clear development path, which means people stay longer.
mm,
It is safe. If you lose, just like Ford, if you lose somebody, well, you lose a function. It's not
yeah.
nice, and you don't really want to lose too many people. But if you lose them, you can get another one and train them up.
And normally with the factory model, you have very clearly defined roles, what is expected of those roles. So it's sort of semi easy to hire someone and find someone who fits those things, because you say, like, you have to do these things. That's it, these things,
Yeah, yes, it is very clear.
instead of
Well,
do
the
all
way
of
in which
these
you
things.
define these roles is in competencies. So a
Yeah.
competency is a combination of a skill and experience. So if I trained you in something, then you've got a skill level, which is good. Tick in that box. You could pass exams about that thing I've trained you in. But
Mm,
unless you can use it in practical terms and get the results that you expect, then the competency isn't complete. So you mix the skill and the experience together, get a competency, and you can measure that competency, right? Well, this model makes it very easy to do that, incredibly easy. We've mapped out all the roles. We've got the competencies for all of the roles, not as many as you might think, and people feel good because they know where they are, and you can tell them what they need to do to get to the next thing.
Yeah,
Very
makes
easy.
people feel safe. Yeah.
So, and as I said earlier, you can have a multi-pod company which can scale. Basically, it's a scalable business, but it's scaling in a safe way, which is the key element of this. On the downside, however,
There's always a yin to a yang, isn't there?
there
Or
is, yeah,
yang
a
to a
little bit.
yin.
It's greater management. You do need more management of it. Like a factory, you couldn't just let a group of people turn up, pick up some tools and get on with machining things. There has to be a plan and a structure. You have to be very data driven, so you've got the reports that you need to be able to measure the functions in the business and know if something's not functioning properly, because somewhere down the line that's going to impact the production line. Having said that, though, that's what you have to do in a scalable business anyway.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, you'll never scale. And that's why you need more of an information flow as well. You need information flowing from the factory to you, but also between the different components. It's nowhere near as complex as people make out. It's actually not that bad. You may pay out more in commission, weirdly. You can, because you're more profitable, so that's fine. But ultimately, that extra commission does not impact your profitability.
I always am aware of Tim Watts, who is a very big fan of the factory model. I remember we interviewed him, and he said in it, the more money I give away, the richer I become. And he didn't just mean that with love of his employees. He meant that with cold hard cash as well. So it just, when you pay out, you get more people who want to work for you. You get people who are loyal, because some people are money driven. They want to pay their mortgage off or put their kid through uni or whatever it is. So you do get that element, but the point is that your profits are still increasing. It's not like we're paying out more.
It's all about profit. Everything is about profit, Honestly, everything is about profit. You can draw it out and spend it for yourself. You can draw it out and invest it in your retirement fund. Big thumbs up on that one.
Yeah.
You can invest it into your business to take it to the next level, or you can
Yoga
just
retreats.
Say again?
Yoga retreats.
Yeah, you can have yoga retreats, but you don't give any money to your children, so they have to pay for their own yoga retreats.
No,
Or you can put it into your war chest, your cash war chest, to make you safe for a rainy day. Right? It's all about profit. So there's no point growing a business where its measurement is, oh, I've got 100 staff now. Who cares? Tell me what the profit is. And once you've worked out what you need from that business, you know the profitability you have to get. As soon as you've got it, you have a decision then. Keep it as it is or grow it to the next stage. You choose. Profit, profit, profit. And that's what the factory model is all about. Profit, profit.
I think the key to what you just said was a business that works for you, because that's what a factory model does. Very often when I've come across 360 businesses, they've grown through necessity. So it's sort of, this has happened and I'm doing this now. Whereas a factory model is growing with purpose for one reason, is to make the company that you want, that funds your lifestyle, however that lifestyle may work. It may be that you want to work 40-hour weeks, or it may be that you want to work a 4-hour week. It doesn't matter. But because you grow the factory model intentionally and you figure out what that means for you as an owner, it becomes what you want. And I think that's what the most powerful thing is. I mean, yes, it's profit and everything, but you make a business that works for you, and that looks different for every single individual. But a factory model, you have control over that. Whereas in my experience of a 360 model, sometimes it has control over you, which,
Yeah, that's what this series is all about, really. For people that want a business works hard for them, not the other way around. I mean, that's not just some cliche. That's how we see it. That's the rule. And I think with 360s, there's way too much out of your control, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And there's way too much that's one person leaving can set you back a year.
Easy.
Well, it's the deal, really. More than that, perhaps, if they're a senior person. Factory model, not so much. I mean, it still hurts if someone leaves. Of course it does. But if you want to grow a scalable business, whether it's scale and sell or just scale and reach the stage that you want and for it to function, it's a good idea to keep a team together and make them really good at what they do. And then you can pay them well. You're still going to make money on that. It's still going to work really well for you. And I'm just a huge fan of this. I've got to be honest with you. I sometimes struggle to convince people that that's the way to go. And yet, funnily enough, I sent out an email to suggest we were doing this and you should come. And I had a couple of respondents too, in fact. I won't name them, but you know who you are. And both of them said, do people still do the 360 model then? And they don't think they were being sarcastic, actually. but people still do. And I think, well, okay, and you can, by the way, if you wanted to know, you can mix the 360 and factory models together. That's fine. If you've got incumbent 360s that want to stay that way, that's absolutely fine. No problem with that. It works perfectly well. Many of them, though, do switch across when they see the new world, but it's your choice. You can do that.
Fair enough. Right. Okay. So, Mike, I think that has been a great opening show today. I think that we've really set the scene for kind of the purpose of this Mike Ames recruitment show, is that we want to help people build that. So we are going to have a lot more videos. In fact, next week, I believe we have Andy Hallett as our
We
guest.
do. The amazing Andy Hallett, ex-commercial director of S3. He's coming on the show. He's going to talk to us.
Yeah, what's he going to talk to us about?
He's going to come and talk to us about how to set up a contract desk,
which I know a lot of people are interested in.
Something both of us have done. We're coming at it. He's coming at it from the corporate view. I'm coming at it from the small business entrepreneurial view. So it's going to be an interesting mishmash, I think.
It's going to be spicy. I'm very much looking forward to that. And I want to thank you, everybody who's watched the show today. It's been a bit more of us talking than sort of interactive than we normally do. Although I have to say, Gavin, the golf retreat isn't my thing. It's more of a yoga.
Gavin's spot on. Gavin's coming on the show soon, right? And he's going to talk about, no, he's not going to talk about golf retreats, but he's coming on the show for that reason, just right there.
Just because of that reason. I want to say thank you very much to Mike for leading the ship. I want to thank everybody who's watched us, and I look forward to spending this year sort of with you guys. Isn't that all nice?